Hello, YouTube land. This is Brenton Son coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. Today I have a interesting Bigfoot story for you. It's going to be unlike anything you've heard. I promise you that. This case takes place in Florida, and this man has kind of put the pieces together as an adult. And he's going to kind of take us through this connecting the dots and what he encountered when he was a kid. And I don't want to give it away but you know, the title, I guess, will give some of it away. Anyway, he had this experience inside the house. And to me, that's just incredible. But his name is Mike. He's from Florida. And he was traumatized by this, and I really appreciate him coming on and sharing. Now, his dad and his mom and his brother all, knew about this creature also. So as the story kind of escalates through, and he's, telling the story and what have you, it might be possible that they would want to share, and they are certainly welcome to do that to validate the story. Mike has said, look, I'll take a lie detector test. I know that there's going to be some people saying, oh, it was sleep paralysis or something like that, but you'll see in the story there's some things that happen that take it out of that realm. And anyway, you're going to like this story. So we're going to talk with Mike from Florida about what happened to him. And if anyone out there has a story that they want to share, whether it's Bigfoot, dog man, any kind of cryptid, or some kind of supernatural story, I cover all kinds of things here on Brenton Son Mysteries to Search. You can contact me at brentonson@gmail.com. With saying that, let's just go to our guest, Mike from Florida, and his story about Bigfoot. If you want to start with kind of telling us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about where you live so people get an idea of the location.
Okay. I am a third generation Floridian, Central Florida. And let's see, my father grew up, I'll just go ahead and tell the town if anybody's out there that think might be pretty cool. It's Port Orange, Florida. And when my dad grew up here, it was just pretty much Mayberry on the beach. That's what I would say it was.
Right.
My dad grew up in the 60s. There was just dirt roads, one cop car, and the rest, even before 95 going west, was just hunting land. I've lived there all my life. So, yeah, that's about it. I'm just pretty much, I tell people when I grew up, it was pretty much I was in a tree or in a beach, and the beach was my babysitter. So I had a great life when I was younger. So
yeah, that sounds fun.
Had a really good childhood.
Right. Yeah, man, I love Florida. I love going to the beach, and I like having that warm weather, year round. And I know that some of the stuff happened near Ocala. My grandmother lived down there for a while, and I'd go visit. And I like going down into the deeper part of Florida where it gets tropical, But any part of Florida is great. And you got, ocean and everything. Now, you have a very interesting story from when you were a child. So, however you want to kind of bring all this together, you do it however you want to. If you, want to start with your dad or whatever you want to do, that's fine.
Okay.
But just kind of tell us your story, man. It's absolutely fascinating, for sure.
Okay, all right, man. Just want everybody to know, before I do start into the story, I know there's going to be trolls out there or whatever. When I did have it, I was younger, but when I was a young kid, I was like very well educated. I was like first in my class. I had my head on my shoulders. Came from my father and my mother. They knew each other ever since they were like 6 and 8 years old, and they grew up here in Port Orange. And turns out my father and my uncles have, a couple stories that I found out after I finally told my dad 30 years after the fact, after this started happening to me, which I'll get into in just a minute.
Right.
Well, my dad, they would tell a story when I was younger, and they would always get hush hush, when the kids came around. Well, what happened was they were in Boy Scouts, and sorry, dog's barking, but they were in Boy Scouts, and my dad has his older brothers and, him, and then his younger brother. And they would go out to Lake Ashby, Florida. It's near Osteen. All kinds of land out there. And it goes right up to D-Land, to Astor, to Ocala. And it's land that, someone could walk and probably be in the woods most of the time now. But it was all sticks. That's all it was. And the story begins where they were at night and they were doing, the younger Boy Scouts stayed, like around the camp because they were younger. And the older ones, my dad's brothers and stuff, they were tromping around the lake with their Boy Scout chief and having fun, doing whatever. And before they came back around the lake, they went, did like a roll call and they counted everybody. Well, and so they go and they count everybody, and they came up with one more person each time. And my uncle said they did this like 5 or 6 times, and he said like the Boy Scout master or chief, they were looking at each other kind of like, what the heck's going on? So they did it one more time, and then they asked everybody to start coming towards them. You know what I mean? They kind of huddled together. And there was one person or thing, and everybody, they said it was a Sasquatch. It was still in the trees, and it didn't listen to them. After that happened, everybody hauled butt back to the camp. My dad said, the chief, the guys who were the actual men of the group, were there. They got back. They built the fire bigger. This is one story my dad finally told me. Moving on, my dad and my mom get, the older. They got married when they were pretty young. My mom was 16, my dad was 19, had their own place. And in Port Orange, it was still, pretty much it's the city, and then you go west, and it's still, once you pass 95, there's some, subdivisions, but it's pretty much all land out there. And my mom had lost her cat. And she was looking for the cat. She loved, this is like her favorite cat. She said it was kind of a little bit like I don't want to say it's weird, but on the slow side. And she was looking everywhere for the cat. She loved the cat, looking everywhere. And they went down like a old road where it was like the cemetery was. And they kept on going to a spot. My dad said he never liked the spot. They passed the cemetery. It's like really dark, and it just leads out the swamp. They said they got to a certain thing. They were calling out for the cats, and they both got hit by, like, he described it as he's never felt it before, like this really guttural, like, went right in his gut to where he was like, they were both nauseous, and it was just this nasty, he even said it was like almost demonic sounding growl.
Right.
He turned around to push my mom, get her going, and it was, he was laughing. He said she was gone already, running towards the house. Next story, I want to say would be when we moved into, it was a new subdivision. I'm not going to, give the name or anything, but it was right on the edge of, the forest. And, of course, there's little houses, farmhouses here and there, going towards 95. But, this is like the first subdivision, really, in Port Orange. And it was right where the landfill used to be.
Wow.
And if people know Port Orange, they know what I'm talking about. So the land, I'm starting to slowly, when we were talking, starting to put stuff together.
Right.
But, I was thinking the landfill maybe had, some squatches every now and then, going out for a little snack. I don't know. But anyway, that's where they cleared it out. They put the house on there. Our house was on a hill, and there was a lake. Then there were just woods. So I grew up there, and I remember one time they used to have my folks had like a prayer meeting there, and they had something this is like when we first moved in, my mom and my dad said, they had something at the door, banging on it and banging on the house.
Right.
And remember they came and got us, kind of put us in the bathroom, and I remember seeing the people from church. They were all scared, and they had the thing growling and huffing and stuff at the house. They shined a light on it, then it ran away. But the light, it had eyes that glowed, Had that happen at the house. And then I got older, probably about, I was 8 years old. This is getting to what really happened to me. 8 years old, my dad, he hardworking man. He worked the graveyard shift, or 2 to 10 or 2 to 11. And, I would hear him leave, and I was the oldest in the house. So, I kind of would watch over everybody, or, if anything happened, I would, try and be, the man of the house. I was only 8 years old though, but
yeah. Wow.
Anyway, man, I heard him leave, heard the car leave, and, I could tell something was up with my dad even before then. He was kind of putting, we call it a redneck alarm. He put like pots and pans on the doors.
Wow.
He would put it on the garage. The garage door which was right at the opposite end of where my room, where my mom's room was, and my sister's room. It was like kind of at the end of the house. Across the way, then it was the living room, and then it went to the garage. But he was putting pots and pans, and I remember asking him, like, Dad, why are you putting those up there? He's like, oh, kind of brush it off like any dad would.
Right.
Yeah, and that always got to me. But anyway, must have been, he would go to work around 2. And let's see.
So they had been seeing something, knocking on the house, banging on the doors, making audible sounds, and this was freaking your dad out and freaking your mom out, and even your prayer group that you'd had over there. So so they all knew, and what I think threw you off, as you said, your mom at one point said, "There's a demon at the door."
Yes.
So you were thinking more on a religious line instead of a physical creature standing at the door. When she was looking out the window looking at a creature, she was calling a demon. So, and then all of a sudden your dad is putting things on the door to make a redneck alarm so you could hear if something, wiggles the door or moves it. Wow, that's fascinating, man.
Yeah. And I've slowly put this together, like I said, and it's taken me 30 years to say this. So, so my dad goes to work. I kind of go back to sleep. And what woke me up, man, I don't know if it was a sound or whatever, but me and my brother had bunk beds, and I had the top bunk, of course, because I was the oldest. And sleeping on my back. And just something woke me up. Something, I could feel a presence to the right of me. And so I turn my head, and there's this squatch sitting. I mean, it was adolescent, Bigfoot, squatch, skunk ape, whatever you want to call it, right to the right of me. Must have been 6 foot to clear the bed, or the rail on it. And let's see, I freaked out, man. Of course, needless to say. Let's say I told my dad. I finally told my dad this story, and it wasn't that I was like frozen at first. I just did not want to move. I mean, I was still, and I turned my head to the right, and I could move my eyes around, and I got a good look at this thing. Let's see. Its eyes were checking me out. I remember we were like on a hill, and across the street was a light. and we had like the basic horizontal type blinds where you could see through. You know what I mean? If there was a light.
Right.
So I had the first time before I blinked my eyes, I was checking it out probably, I said, for like a minute and a half. So I had long enough time to check its features out. And just remember, I'm just using my eyes, and they're must have been wide open. This thing kind of was mimicking me a little bit with my eyes. I was blink. I remember I could see, you know, you can look at someone's eyes, and when they move it around, like their eyelid twitches.
Yeah.
This is what was happening to the skunk ape. It had hair all over it. Like I said, telling you the other day, I knew it was an adolescent because the hair on it wasn't that blotchy. It went all the way back. It wasn't like the patty one. I think it was like a class 2 or whatever they call it, a smaller one.
Yeah.
Had a black nose with it was folded. Man. Yeah, the eyes are what got me, man. The mouth, it had like the goatee, you know, all the way around, like the hair around its face, I want to say was like maybe an inch to half an inch going all the way around it, except for its nose, and except for a little part where it had little lips. Kind of looked like a uglier version of Chewbacca.
Right.
But it wasn't Chewbacca. I mean, the damn thing was blinking.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there, and being 8 years old, I was, you know, I was smart. I told myself, okay, if I blink, hold, you know, and I look up, this thing's gone, then I'm just having one. I knew about those dreams that people had that froze them up, and usually they would see something or whatever.
Right.
You know, I knew about those dreams when I was that young. I forget what you call them, but you know what I mean?
Sleep
paralysis. This is what's going through my head, little 8-year-old's head. I said, I know it's real if I open my eyes again, and it's still there.
Right.
So after realizing this thing's next to me, and I'm like, okay, I close my eyes for, I don't know how long. It was long enough to say a prayer and just be like, oh, God, please let this thing be gone. For the love of God, let this thing be gone. I open my eyes. It's still there, dude. Jesus, Lord. It is still there. This time I could feel its breath, dude. It was that close to my face.
So he was just standing there, just staring at you, and
it was kind of staring at me, looking at me. And when I woke up again, I tried to scream. This is when pure terror. I mean, I was scared. When I tried to scream, it opened up its mouth because nothing was coming out of mine. It was like mimicking me. Okay. But I tried to scream when I realized this thing is freaking real. I mean, really real. I could feel its freaking breath on me. The eyes are blinking on it. And then I just stared at it, and it was just like I was kind of frozen. It cocked its head, was looking at me some more. I don't know how long, you know, I looked at it, but after that I closed my eyes, and I stayed with my eyes closed, awake the rest of the night until the sun came out. And I could feel the presence of it leave, though, probably 30 minutes after I closed my eyes.
Wow.
I got up the next morning. My mom was up, too. She got up and make coffee. And I got in trouble for leaving, like, the doors open. Everything was always me, and I do admit it. Like, I usually was the culprit of this stuff growing up. If you talk to my friends, I was like the leader doing stuff. So I always got, I was always branded, let's put it that way. So, but there was dirt, sand, and my mom was vacuuming it. She vacuumed it up. She was pissed off. She's like, you guys got to start walking that door. Blah, blah, blah. So I got in trouble, man. Yeah.
And she was, so there was like mud and sand and stuff like that all tracked through the house into your room?
Yes, sir.
And your mom was ticked off, and she was cleaning this all up, and you probably did you want to tell her and chickened out, or?
Oh yeah. I didn't know what she would. I mean, this thing, after this, man, I put it in it's been in the back of my mind. I mean, that, and I didn't sleep good for a while. I didn't go out in the woods. Like I told you, we used to, have the woods next to our house. We had bike paths. And, for a long time, even I can't remember too much after that. It's like I blocked everything out, man.
Yeah, yeah. You do that.
I started having panic attacks. I still do to this day sometimes.
Right.
They've subsided. But, yeah, man, really bad panic attacks sometimes.
So when this thing was standing there looking at you in your bed, so it's tall enough to look at you.
Yeah.
It's basically studying you with cocking its head, and it I guess it seemed like it was curious and just studying.
Yeah.
And okay, now
I'm sorry.
Now was its whole face covered with hair except the eyes and nose and around the mouth, right?
It kind of, let's see. It was really short hair. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
It looked like a mix between, like a lot of people say, and I don't mean to be cliche, but it looked like a mix between an ape and a man.
Yeah. Okay.
It was young.
On the top of its head, did it seem to have
fuzzy type hair?
Okay.
What's that?
So on the top of the head and the chin and stuff like that, did it look like it had like a hairdo a little bit longer?
On the top of the hair, yeah, right to the brow, like where our eyelashes, where our eyebrows would be, it had hair going back. Okay. You know what I mean? Like it was going all the way back. The hair, the color of it was a white, auburn, reddish, and even almost like blonde at the tips on some of it. Hair around like under the eyes and like the nose was almost like a peach fuzz type looking. It wasn't that long. It looked young, and like I told you yesterday, it just seemed like it was. I knew it was that. I wasn't looking at it, and kind of. I've done research on this stuff, and it was definitely an adolescent. Just the way it looked new. It looked like a 16.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I think this thing had seen me before, and us tramping through the woods one day. I told you this. Of course, it was my idea. I had my cousins with me and my brother. There was part of the woods we'd never been to. I didn't know what was back there, so you had to go underneath a bunch of sawgrass and a bunch of thorns. There's thorns everywhere around here. And so we kind of beat our way back in there. I even have a little machete that my mom didn't know about that I found out there. So I was kind of clearing away, and it came in and opened up into this little swamp. And looking around, got there, and my brother, he pops out. I'm looking around on the ground, and, like, you could see little feet print, like someone was out there barefoot. I remember being a kid, like, who the hell's out here barefoot, I'm going to get something to drink real quick.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't walk barefoot out there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly, man. And I remember seeing, it was probably, let's see, my size footprint now, which is like a 12. So, and there was maybe a couple bigger ones, but nothing, where I was like, oh my God. But I remember being like, who the hell has been out here? They must be poor or, don't have any shoes, But yeah, that happened. But I got the thing, it had been, and maybe this is just me, putting thought to it, or my own spin on it, but it felt like it knew me. You know what I mean? It felt like it had watched me. And apparently if it knew,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I bet it did. You and your brother played out in the woods and stuff all the time. Did you make
that's where we were.
Did you make tree houses and
Oh, yeah. The tree houses, I mean, we were racket, making noises in there. Before, I would tell my dad, before we would go in, we would knock sometimes, and something would knock back, and I'm, and,
before you would go in your treehouse, you would knock?
Yeah, we would hear knocks out in the woods and stuff when I was a kid.
So what were you knocking on? The treehouse?
No, wood. I'm sorry, my dad just asked. So we were knocking on trees and stuff.
Okay.
I remember being out in the woods, us playing, and it would happen every time we would walk in the woods. So you'd hear like a knock, knock. So we would knock back, and you would hear knock, knock, knock. So we would do the knock, knock, knock back. And this happened probably a handful of times.
Huh.
And like I said, I was just putting all this together, man, and talking to my dad, and we would go camping out in Ocala, and I was telling him, I was like, that's what those whoops and the knocks and he freaked out one time and had built like a barrier with chairs around a fire and built a fire almost like a bonfire out in the middle of Ocala. I said, were you scared of something? My dad, he didn't say anything. My dad, he'll tell you what, like I was telling you, he's holding something back in. I know he's seen more than he's telling me, but just for him to come out and say he believes in it, and after my story, and like what also happened was when I told him, he got pissed. He was like, it got in the house. If you know my dad, he's like really soft spoken. He either said something really profound or something really funny. Right. Other than that, he's just a quiet man. And I told him that he was pissed. And so he was fighting the same day. He was fighting the Squatch getting in the house.
Yeah. So he basically said it got in the house. Like,
yeah,
he was mad that he knew it was trying to get in the house then.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously now that you look back on it, him putting those alarm type things on the doors and wow. Huh. And so you all wake up and do you think maybe what woke you up was that it triggered those pots and pans or something and nobody else knows?
Something did. Yeah. I'm a light sleeper anyway. I mean, I'm pretty sure something woke me up like that, man. After he left, I remember I was kind of a little restless, and I turned back, and it was just like, something woke me up. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of like eased over, and the house was, we live in a pretty small house. It was his first house, So it was all carpet, so it really didn't make any noise. There wasn't that much for it to bump into. Slept with the door open, with the light on, or not the light on, but we had the bathroom, and it had like a night light in there. So we kind of sleep with the door open a little bit, so it just got a little bit of light in there. And it knew where I was, and that's what I've been holding back for like 30 years. And like I was telling, I wanted it, someone to hear the story and even kind of, document it, because my health's not too good right now. So I was wanting to tell somebody my story. Yeah. And just let people know that these things. I mean, this one was definitely a teenager, if you want to put it that way, and he was out. That's what I got from it looking. But these things are dangerous around here, and the locals, the true Floridians, know that, and the people out in the country do know that. I know there's people out there, that are trying to find it or whatever. That's cool, but make sure you go out with a loaded gun and you go out with somebody else. And I'm serious. And women, these things, people don't realize these things rape people. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't want to be going on a tangent here, but, they're not like the cute little cuddly forest creature. These things, there's stories in there where these things take kids to do that. So everyone just needs to be careful, man. They had a damn thing come in the house. They're smart. Yeah.
And I bet you that the alpha male and the mama Bigfoot or whatever you would want to call them, I bet you they didn't know that juvenile did that. But it sounds like he had been watching you all play, and he probably had been looking in windows and things like that, and he knew what room was yours, and he probably was watching you through those blinds and as you went to bed. Man, that is incredible, man.
I would take a light effect, and the thing is, I don't lie. I said a little white light here and there growing up. That's one thing my dad instilled in me. you know, this really happened, dude. And people, of course, are saying, well, you know, he was young and he had one of those dreams. You know, I've already, like, analyzed this in my head. And when I was 8 years old, you know, I knew what I had to do. I had to sit there, close my eyes, and if this thing was still there, it was still there. Well, I opened it up, and this thing was still there. And this thing has haunted me with dreams ever since. And, you know, I mean, I felt its breath. I could hear it breathing. It breathed through its nose and out its mouth. It didn't stink either. That's why people need to know that, too. They don't all stink.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's plenty of fresh springs and, you know, places in Florida for it not to stink. And, you know, if I was out there and it's hot, you better believe I'm jumping in the water. These things do jump in the water. And me and my dad were talking, and pretty sure best way to travel is probably, you know, around rivers and little canals and stuff. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, actually, I had someone call me earlier today. He went to a spot in Louisiana, and he spotted something. It was in the tree, and when he tried to throw the flashlight over to it, it jumped out of the tree into the water and was, you know, and swam off.
Yeah.
And
man,
he was trying to get his camera out, but it was too dark. He said it didn't take nothing, but he said he might have got a whistle on because it whistled a couple times too, or something whistled. But yeah,
I had to go with snorkeling coming across.
Wow.
Just snorkeling come across that. I'd rather come across a gator.
So after this thing had come in the house, and you know, and you got in trouble and all that kind of stuff. After that, did you continue to have the activity of the knocking on the doors and the house and stuff like that, or?
Yes. Well, we had it still trying to get in. The knocking and stuff on the door, didn't really hear too much that at night, you know. I do remember hearing, and this is when I was growing up, so it always had, I mean, it was always there. It was always a problem. It was for years. I wish my dad, I asked him if he wanted to get on here, and he, you know, he's not going to do it yet. But he was doing his, you know, his thing for years, putting the pot on there. I remember, you know, being almost in high school, and he was still doing it. And that was from 8 years old, you know.
Right.
But yeah, I remember one time, you know, waking up to something jiggling it, and the pot fell off. So it either a burglar or it got in again. But the thing was, you could feel the vibrations of this thing running outside the house, and we had a brick house. And you could feel, and my dad caught it one previous time. He heard it jiggling, and I heard him getting up and going through, and it ran off. And I was in my bed. This is probably a few years later. And like I said, you could feel the vibrations of this thing. So it was, whatever it was, you know, decent size, or it had gotten bigger. And it ran down the street. When it hit the pavement, it was pretty loud. It was like a clodhopper. And then you can hear it go kind of through someone's yard and was out in the woods.
Wow.
Yeah, dude, that happened. And I saw, you know, I saw a big, bulky, black, cartoony looking, you know, they say it's like cartoony sometimes looking.
Right.
That type of character running. And my dad heard it. I remember getting up, and I was like, he's like, what was that? I was like, Dad, I don't know. I saw it going. I remember that when I was younger, and the time that the pot did fall, excuse me. And, you know, he got up real quick. I was up. My brother, I have a younger brother, he was up. And, you know, something definitely had tried to get in the house. And once we got up, you can hear it running off, and you can feel the vibrations. Now, that's got to be one big man to feel vibrations in a solid brick house. So.
Yeah, that's some heavy stuff. Now,
yeah, man.
Do you think maybe someone just forgot to lock the door that night, or you?
Oh yeah. It could have been me. When I was older, then I could have been playing with my friends, and snuck out for a minute. Went because I used to do Casanova, when I was younger. Yeah, met a girl down by the lake or something. I had girlfriends, and we'd come back in, and it could have been me forgetting to do the door. Like I said, my sister was kind of the same way. She had a friend behind us, and when she just, recently told us that she would sneak out all the time, even when she was young.
Yeah.
Any of us kids, there was 3 kids there that were not wild. We were good kids, but, we were kids.
Yeah.
We could have left the door open. Definitely, without doubt, could have left the door open.
Right.
Or unlocked. So.
Yeah. Sometimes you can take a locked door and go back and forth with it sometimes, and it'll actually pop open. But it sounds to me like your dad was really struggling to make sure nothing was getting in, and there was I guess maybe
there was a breach.
Yeah, there was a breach in protocol, and maybe usually the pots and pans freaked it out, and it took off when something banged, and this particular time maybe it just didn't make enough noise to freak it out, and so it continued, and this time the door actually knob turned.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe the door just kind of, and he's like, "Oh, I think I'm."
He's like, "Okay."
It's strange. He came right to your room, though, and I mean, he knew what room was yours.
Yeah. And it's like I said, man, this is haunting me. It is giving me, night terrors. They were going even when I was like 10, sometimes like trying to sleep, like not in my parents' bed, but like on the side of the parents' bed. Up until I was almost 12, I would like sometimes just literally freak out, or my brother would wake up and I would be sleeping with him. Since then, I can't sleep alone, man. I have to have either a big old dog sleeping with me,
Right.
Recently got divorced, so I'm sleeping by myself, and I'm like grabbing the cat to come in there. And I'm 38 years old. I'm 285 pounds. I was a linebacker. I'm sleeping with a cat because I'm still, it's still, it freaked me out, man. It did affect my life, and there are some the PTS stuff, or PTSD, the post-traumatic stress syndrome. There are some things that are still, with the anxiety, reliving it. I relive it. It was like every day, but now it's got to the point where I'm putting my efforts in, kind of quote unquote researching it. Let's just put it this way: my dad's still worried about and worried for me because I was ready. I could still walk and stuff like that with my disability. Not that far, but if I take my time, I was wanting to have him drop me off at a preserve and just kind of walk through it. And he's like, "No way in hell he wouldn't do it." And I'm 39 years old, and I had to move back to my parents' house because I got a disability, and my wife didn't want to stay with me, so due to disability. But that's whatever. And my dad, he's still concerned. He's like, "You're not going out there alone." He's like, "Boars alone, you come across a wild boar, that's one thing." He's like, "You come across one of these, ain't gonna see you again." So.
Right. Well, talking about it and doing some researching and things like that, it starts to desensitize you to the trauma. And so the first step, if you were to go get counseling, the first step they would try to get you to do is start to talk about it. And over time, it becomes less of it basically desensitizes you to the topic. And the more you learn too, the more you kind of figure out exactly what happened, because the unknown factors sometimes are what's so scary. It sounded like you just had a juvenile that had been watching you and was very curious about the boys, and kind of wanted maybe to play, but when they get older, I don't think they're that friendly. I think they thrive a lot on instinct of needing to eat and mate and things like that, and therefore
they hit puberty and
you don't want
dude.
So
But
that's big. It's dangerous. I believe that they're dangerous. And
oh yeah, dude, I'm shaking like a leaf just talking about it now. I mean, I have to do breathing. I mean, with my condition, and then the anxiety and stuff just from everyday life and going through this. Like I'm shaking right now. I just having this thing go through my head again.
yeah. Well,
So
I think
it's
that's
just something I got to live with. I got good doctors.
yeah.
I don't want to be on medication the rest of my life, but it really. I don't want to go too much, but it did affect me big time.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to get better. Did your brother ever say anything about any of this?
No. If he listens to this story, it'll be the first time. He mentioned some things coming in the house, and I tried to talk to him, and he's just like, I don't want to talk about it. So he probably saw something too.
Oh.
We just kind of Southerners kind of keep it in, I mean, a lot of people do. Don't get me wrong, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Sort of crackers to kind of keep that stuff in, and it's just known down here. Called boogers or swamp apes,
Right.
or skunk apes or whatever. I mean, and just hear my uncles growing up in it, and hear my uncles talk, and they would get hush hush. Something else happened with my dad, and I wish he would tell me.
Well, maybe after they see this,
Yeah.
and they hear your story, maybe your brother and maybe your dad would want to come and say, hey, and maybe even help validate your story a little bit for, the listeners and what have you. So if they do want to come on and if they want to share, I'm asking them to please do it here, and I'll kind of get each story on its own, and then when that's all done, I could take them all three and put them into one series of one show. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So they have that invitation if they want to do it. And
Okay.
I think it's important, man. People need to know this kind of stuff.
I had to get, I did have to get it off my chest, but what kept me, man, was people, thinking I'm crazy or, and it just really happened, man.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And just hearing my dad, who never said anything. He knew I was interested in Bigfoot after this, and when I was kind of older, would, get books and everything I could get, my hands on. And just to hear him say he believes me, like really.
That's awesome, man.
Dude, it really just kind of was like, thank God, you know what I mean? Because I thought this whole experience was, just something crazy, like one of those. And I know there's going to be people on there that are going to say, oh, you were young and watched too much Star Wars, or, no, this thing, I could feel it breathe.
Yeah.
It wasn't no guy in a mask.
Right.
You could see I could see the eye, the twitching, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where right before it would blink. I mean, I saw it, man.
Yeah.
I would love to give like a, what do you call it, a lie test or whatever they call those things. I mean, I saw this thing.
I'll be coming down to Florida sometime this year to get up with Mark Zaxby. He's a researcher down in your area and stuff, and I will look you up, man, and we'll meet up and go get something to eat. And I mean, Florida's got excellent food and stuff, and so I very much would like to get up with you. And don't worry about the people that don't believe you. There's going to be many more that do believe you. That just comes with it, and you'll have thousands of people that end up watching this, and there's going to be such a small percentage that are naysayers. So you come off as very, very truthful, and I think most people are going to pick up on that. But you're always going to have the trolls, man. They got to come by and try to stir the pot. But I've been blocking most of those if they get rude. I'm not going to let them be rude.
If they get too rude, don't worry about it. Well, I don't want to start going back and forth with somebody, but
this will help people. There's going to be other people out there that's been in your situation with similar kind of stuff, and this is going to help them to know that they aren't crazy. And, you know, I started out doing this, sharing my own encounters, and I knew there would be some people that said, "Oh, that's not true," blah blah blah. And but you get over that part,
Yeah.
man. You know what happened,
Yeah.
and it took you a while to put pieces together. But I think overall, your story, where what happened to you, what was going on in your home, what your dad was guarding
Yep.
against, and the sounds and things that your mom even said, standing at the door, and all those
And
things
just,
add up to a
yeah,
truthful story.
the knocking before, I just remember that, like, today. And this
Yeah,
is not me just coming up with stuff. It's just
yeah,
slowly kind of coming back. You know what I mean? I've heard people that are traumatized by something, and they say, starts coming back.
yeah,
I remember knocking on trees and
yeah,
someone knocking back and thinking it was the kid down the way.
yeah.
Good grief, man.
Well, see, all that stuff's going to help you big time, dude. And you're going to have a lot
Yeah.
of the fans are going to they're going to appreciate you, okay? And they're going to say thank
Okay, I
you
hope
for
they
sharing.
do, and just know that um, these things aren't. Don't, if you're gonna do the finding Bigfoot, I understand, go camping and have fun. I'm just saying, you go out there and be careful. God would not go looking for these things. I never want to see one again. I'm kind of, just be careful, especially the women, man. I'm not here, my Southern gentleman coming out, but do some research on some of these things and what they've done. And I'm not going to get into it anymore. And believe me, you won't go out and look for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Going squatching is dangerous, and I think that you got to approach it very carefully, because if you run into where they keep their little ones, that's where it gets dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know, man. It's had some dangerous stuff. Mark Zaxby down there in Florida, he puts himself in some dangerous situations. I can tell you that. But
Yeah.
anyway, man, I really appreciate you sharing. And like I said, if your dad or your brother wants to share, they're welcome to do it. And you've got my information. We'll be talking some more, and and maybe if your dad or your brother ends up sharing, if you remember more, you can come on too. And
Okay.
we'll leave this a kind of an open-ended thing. But thank you for sharing, and I
Yeah,
really do
man.
appreciate it, Mike.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you and listening. And thanks a lot, man. I had to get the story out there.
All right,
I
well,
do appreciate it.
you're welcome. And
God bless.
I'll email you my home number, and you can call anytime you want. Okay.
All right, buddy.
All right. God bless, man. We'll talk to you later,
All
Mike.
right, man. You too.
All right.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Well, YouTube land, I hope you enjoyed that story. I really appreciate Mike coming on and sharing. And if his brother and his dad wants to come forth and share, that would be wonderful. I'd be glad to have him. So we'll just kind of leave this as an open-ended thing here, and maybe it will be an ongoing. I've got some great stuff coming up. I don't want you all to miss this week. It's going to be a fascinating week with some more very, very interesting stories. If anyone has an encounter with a cryptid of any kind, dogman, Bigfoot, or whatever kind of story, if it's an interesting story and you think it would make a good show, contact me at brentonson@gmail.com. God bless, and bye-bye.